Awesome. Thanks for joining us for 3 standout ways to surprise and delight your guests. Today, we have Samantha Hardcastle joining us. Samantha Hardcastle is the founder of the Story Experience and the 5-Star Pathway course. She brings a decade of marketing strategy and creative storytelling to the hospitality properties and destinations worldwide. With a passion-driven mission to help brands elevate their experience, she guides leaders through the process of deepening the purpose, culture, well-being, and personality across the entire traveler journey. Samantha also holds a certification from Cornell University in customer-driven marketing and used to manage hundreds of social media accounts for her clients. So we are happy to have her. Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you so much, Nathan. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you to ResNexus for inviting me to speak, and thank you for the great introduction. So today we have a lot planned, and I want to make sure we get to everything. So I'm going to go right in to today's topics. Here's what we plan on covering today as we explore all things guest experience, from the moment your guest arrives to the moment they leave. You know, I often see hosts spending so much time in their day-to-day tasks that they don't get a chance to pause and reflect on the journey their guests go on while they're at the property. Your property holds so much potential in it for you to unlock. So today we will be covering today's guest expectations, touch points and sensory cues, environment and moment making, experiences and programming, and last but not least, packaging your experience. So the hospitality and travel landscape has changed drastically over the last decade. Due in part to social media, people are being exposed to a vast range of experiences and properties that they never even knew existed. And with exposure to new and exciting things comes new expectations. According to Ipsos, nearly 1 in 3 guests admit their guest experience expectations are higher than they were just a few years ago. And in a study by Deloitte, only 56% of guests said they are satisfied with how hotels surprise and delight them. This means that nearly half of guests are walking away dissatisfied and feeling like the property could have done more in regards to this. Sometimes expectations are so high that guests abandon the booking process completely because they can't find what they're looking for. And this is so important for us to acknowledge because we know that there are plenty of properties in every destination. So clearly there's a disconnect between what guests are seeking and what they are finding. This is part of a big study done by Google and Bain & Co., where they uncovered that these needs not being met are more than just the functional needs that most businesses focus their energy on addressing. This isn't about amenities offered. These needs are often less tangible, more emotional. And that's why it's so important to focus on the experiences and moments you create. After all, people are choosing to spend their few rare vacation days with you. So they are seeking out experiences that are unique and memorable. According to Vrbo, millennials are leading this charge. 71% prefer non-traditional accommodations like tiny houses and igloos. But a need for uniqueness is not a generational thing, it's a human thing. Every human craves novelty and an escape from the mundane. Depending on their property, their personality and values, what they consider unique will differ. The goal isn't to go out and chase trends and try to embrace every new craze. It's more so about owning your own unique personality and making sure that you're playing it up wherever you can. Not just because it's fun and enjoyable, but because it pays too. The hospitality industry has a rather commoditized way of doing business. Oftentimes, what competing properties are charging in your destination is kind of how you end up deciding on your price. But the guest is focused on the experience above all else. At the end of the day, 66% of guests go out of their way to stay at a hotel because of the experience promised to them. Not price, not location, not familiarity or reward points. And on top of this, 67% of high-income travelers would rather pay for activities than a nicer hotel room. This right here tells us where expectations and priorities are shifting. And as an industry, we can't ignore these numbers. Do you limit your experience because you fear you'll have to charge more than the going industry rate and that people won't want to pay for it? Time and time again, we see properties break free from the commoditization trap and get rewarded for it. Now is the time to tap into your creative ideas and create a destination that is experiential, engaging, and valuable to your guests. Give them what they want, because if they're willing to pay for activities over a nicer room, that's where your focus should be right now. Because if you focus your time and energy on creating a remarkable experience that caters to today's guest desires, people are willing to pay more. And you're actually just hurting yourself by competing on price, because properties that compete on price see upwards of a 20% price loss. So there's really zero advantage to doing so. So let's go into the 3 major opportunity zones to surprise and delight your guests. Because your guest experience isn't just about having, the new best technology like keyless entry or a smooth check-in process. And while of course these sort of things are incredibly important, your experience is so much more than that. It's comprised of touch points, moments and spaces, and experiences. All of these things come together to make up your guest journey. And the first is touch points and sensory cues. This is everything your guest sees, hears, touches, tastes, and smells during their stay with you. So during my studies with Cornell, they emphasized the importance of touch points being more than just physical objects. Here's something from my course that stood out to me and I wanted to share with you. What are the ways in which we can symbolize the brand through touch points? These are often visible things that we'd see in a brand's service environment or interaction with customers, or even how we communicate through our marketing promotions. So we know that environment is known to drastically impact our emotions. And you don't need to be an interior designer. You just have to be aware of how certain elements and symbols impact people. Some might refer to this as aesthetic intelligence. For example, being aware of how different colors, imagery, and symbols and smells make people feel. Oftentimes when we make a decorating decision, people just want something that looks good, right? But something can look beautiful and have zero meaning or emotional appeal to someone. Or worse, something can look beautiful and still make people feel uncomfortable or disconnected. The goal is to continuously evaluate how each touch point in your property makes someone feel and what that touch point is saying to someone. Or better yet, how that touch point moves someone into action. Even something as insignificant as a lamp has the ability to stir up emotions. So is it a generic, nondescript, mass-produced lamp? Or is it a lamp that has character and personality? Do you put out games for people to enjoy? Even the choice of which game or puzzle you choose to put out says something to your guests. Each touch point communicates something special to set the mood. So for example, puzzles have a very different vibe than say, for example, playful Mad Libs. So thoughtful touch points have a story behind them. They are symbolic of the local culture. They have meaning to you, and most importantly, they improve the experience in some way for the guest. So much personality gets stripped away when you try to create a polished, sophisticated experience that pleases everyone. So it's rare that touch points on their own are meaningful and of immense value. That happens when a touch point becomes interactive, or you turn the touch point into something engaging, which we will see in some of the following examples. But a pen is just a pen until you use it to write something meaningful, right? So this particular touch point stood out to me because it's made by an artist who has a significant presence in the destination. So it ties into the story of someone's stay. And while a key fob may not be of immense meaning or value to someone, it carries potential within it. It's important to always be asking, how can we take this beyond just a simple object? And of course, not every touch point needs to be incredibly meaningful. It's really more about how all the touch points come together, which you'll see in a few minutes. But first, here's another example. Besides each bed at this New Orleans property is a voodoo-inspired heart box. The artist calls these boxes her Valentine to her most favorite city. These curiosities certainly are surprising, and they tell a deeper story of the local lore. These touch points reinforce the culture, which is incredibly important. After all, if someone is going to drive or fly or take the train, however they get to your property for hours to visit this place, they want to feel like they're somewhere new and exciting. They didn't leave home to experience the same old culture they're familiar with. There's very little surprise and delight in that. So here's another example that's a creative example of a high-touch, low-cost touch point. The hula hoop is a multifunctional decor, serving as a frame for artwork, but it's also something that guests can actually take off the wall and have fun with. So something like this costs the hotel maybe $15 to $20 and creates a playful atmosphere and a really fun talking point. The more engaging and interactive a touch point can be, the better. And this is where a physical object becomes more than just an object. It starts to become a moment. So keep in mind that it's not just what people see, but how it's presented to them. So, it's okay to be playful, whimsical, and color outside the lines. These are the sorts of things that stand out to people because they're used to being in an environment that's very orderly and structured in their day-to-day life. But when creativity leaves hospitality, that's when boredom creeps in. And that's the last thing you want for your guests. Oftentimes hotels can become too sterile and void of personality, even the most luxurious of ones, by creating this look but don't touch environment. I don't know about you, but it makes me think of that room in every house that no one wants to sit in because it's too polished and far from cozy and inviting. So here's a list of some of the most common touch points that you can elevate and play around with. And don't forget, people love sharing photos of the unique things they see, but there's nothing unique about a space with zero character. So the more effort you put into a touch point, the more word of mouth worthy they become. My challenge to you is go through your property and take inventory. How do you want people to respond to each and every touch point? What do you want them to walk away saying, thinking, and feeling? So now we move on to the second area of opportunity for surprise and delight moments. This is what I consider to be like the halfway point between touch point and experience. It's not a full-on experience, but it's not just one single touch point. Oftentimes, changing up just one touch point isn't going to make a huge difference. The touch points all work together to create a moment, a vibe, and a special atmosphere. For example, putting a tree in the middle of your restaurant isn't going to turn you into the Rainforest Cafe, right? I haven't been there in a very long time, but it's something that stands out to me from my childhood as a really remarkable place. But when you bring enough thoughtful touch points together, that's when you intentionally create a certain mood. The animal stools, the rainforest sounds, the twinkling lights. Experience design in this sense is almost like theater stage design, as many experts in the field have likened it to. So here's where you have the opportunity to deepen your engagement with your guests. Let's explore a few examples. So a quilt on its own can be beautiful, but not very engaging or meaningful. Its sole function is to keep someone warm and comfortable. But if we look deeper, a quilt has so much symbolism and rich culture tied to it. Patchwork quilts symbolize family, resourcefulness, the connection between past and present, creativity, and heritage. Each quilt has a story, and Fogo Island Inn takes it beyond just a thoughtful object laying on the bed and turns it into a cultural celebration. Every year they have a quilt hangout day across the island that the whole community participates in. So what was once just a thoughtful touch point has now become a fun moment for visitors and guests. Which takes us to our next point, determining the goal of each environment to ensure you're creating meaningful moments. As I mentioned before, meaningful moments rely on a variety of sensory touch points coming together to engage guests in a significant way. It's up to you to decide what that significance is. Is it a space for gathering? Is it a space for self-reflection? Is this a space for provoking imagination and creativity? An empty space will do very little to spark connection, bonding, and inspiration. But the more you fill it with sensory triggers that play off of each other, the more you're giving people something to respond and engage with. This is how all memorable moments begin. So it's important to have a mix of spaces that serve different purposes. Are you utilizing the space in a creative and engaging way that breaks the script? Lobbies, outdoor spaces, even hallways have the potential for engaging guests. So ask yourself, how can we make learning about the local culture fun and interactive through different touch points? Museums are great at creating moments for the visitors. In the experience economy, which is considered the last 20 years and into this century, we have started to see hospitality mimic their way of engaging visitors. Curated art exhibits, historical reenactments, themed interactive rooms, these are all becoming more and more popular with guests. Maybe you have an empty hallway that you could use to showcase a collection. Or maybe you want to do something interactive with guests in the lobby where they can leave travel suggestions for other guests. Or maybe you use your touchpoints to educate and tell a story. How can you help guests set an intention and help them discover something new? Can you bring the touchpoints together in a way that inspires them to do something new and different that day? This is the sort of things all properties need to be thinking about. Jenna Hackett, the global head of Hilton's Curio and Tapestry collection, makes a really great point here. We talk about storytelling a lot in hospitality. Well, the touchpoints are really weaving the narrative of your property. You may think, is anyone really paying attention to the plates I'm using, or the music I'm playing in the lobby, or the feel of the linens at breakfast? The answer is 100% yes, because every little detail comes together to tell a story. When the details don't flow nicely together, people really do notice that. This is a property I've stayed at before, and it was spaces like this that made me want to book in the first place. This inn does such a great job honoring its heritage and using their spaces and touchpoints to create meaningful moments. So the text on the wall here says, since America's earliest years, schoolhouses have been cornerstones in rural communities, places where young students came to learn, but also where neighbors of all ages gathered for conversation, village meetings, and socials. Completed in 1903 as District School Number 6, this building served the same purpose. Today, the schoolhouse honors its heritage as a community center for learning, exploration, and gatherings. Take note of the apples, the bell, even the furniture. Every little touch point is very thoughtful here to create a specific vibe. The intentions of this space are very clear. It is a hub where all guests can go to play, learn, and partake in enriching moments and experiences. Which leads me to our final opportunity zone for surprise and delight, experiences. 20, 30 years ago, a property was really just a place to sleep. That's changed a lot since we entered the experience economy. Now, nearly 1 in 4 guests are looking for accommodation options that also offer tours and activities as add-ons, and that number is growing rapidly. Luxury resorts are leading this charge that takes properties beyond heads and beds. Take, for example, Auberge. This is a luxury resort company that has properties all over the US, but when you go to their website, they're not promoting their rooms. They're promoting their experiences. Activities, tours, workshops, dinners, tastings, things along those lines. And we see something very similar with Belmond. Another luxury hotel collection, Belmond has a library of incredible experiences that you really can't find anywhere else. And like all things, this will eventually trickle down throughout the industry. But you don't have to have a huge luxury multi-million-dollar brand to begin to explore this further. And you don't even need to have a large staff. You just need to be a thoughtful collaborator and curator. For example, here's a small family-owned property I came across during my recent trip planning. When I travel, I typically plan for a half day off exploring the local culture and spend the rest of the time at the hotel, which means I'm always looking for places that offer a range of activities to keep me engaged when I'm not out and about. Because, for me personally, I can relax and read a book at home anytime I wish, but when I travel, I want to be immersed in the local culture, and I'm not the only one. Offering an experience gives you a competitive edge. If people are comparing your property side by side with a few others, having something to do besides relaxing is super important. Not only that, it provides another revenue stream for you with people who aren't even staying at your hotel. This property, for example, has their cooking classes and activities open to all travelers. So experiences have even gone as far as Airbnb, which offers both online and offline experiences through their booking platform. This shows us that hosts, even with the smallest of properties, are diversifying their offerings and moving beyond just selling accommodations to selling experiences. As online experiences surged during COVID, hosts in the industry saw that people are hungry for unique opportunities to learn about cultures outside of their own. So now, guests can even partake in your experience without actually being there. This is great because you can give prospective visitors a taste of what you have to offer before they even arrive. These online experiences are a terrific way to boost exposure within your destination. So what does it mean to be a collaborator and a curator? So if you do decide to go down this route, you don't have to be the one doing everything. Like, really, you don't. You just have to find creative ways to bring the local culture to your guests. Social media shows us there's just millions of people out there with special and unique gifts that they're just dying to share with others. And your property can be a platform for them to express that. This is a perfect example from another hotel that I recently visited. So a local expert forager hosts tours all over private spaces in Asheville. The Grove Park Inn has huge properties with trails. So the two came together, and now this forager has a special tour offering that runs exclusively on the property. How it works is, you collect your findings from the foraging tour, and you actually bring them to the restaurant on site, and they will make you a dish with your foraged finds. It's a win-win for both parties, and most importantly, guests don't have to leave the property. This saves them a trip because we all know how expensive and somewhat bothersome transportation can be during travel. And now you have given the guests a reason to dine at your restaurant again. The more time on your property means more profit opportunities. So hopefully this has inspired you and you're already starting to think about experiences you could offer guests. My best piece of advice when it comes to this would be, if you're going to do this, don't try to mimic everything that your competitors are doing. Don't offer the same activities and experiences that guests can do elsewhere. Make it just slightly different and unique to your property. So for example, most of us have probably gone to a vineyard once or twice, right? It's a pretty typical experience. You go, you taste wine, maybe they put some cheese and snacks out for you, and then you leave. So when I was researching experiences for an upcoming trip, I didn't really want to do any vineyard experiences. But I changed my mind when I saw this experience on Airbnb. Let's take a moment to just watch this video. So one unexpected change to the Vineyard experience, and I was immediately on board. Because instead of the typical experience, this host puts a classical music concert on for his guests at sunset. And for me, growing up listening to my father play classical music, after dinner, made me fall in love with this experience in a heartbeat. So am I saying you need to go out and invest in a baby grand and learn how to play the Goldberg variations? No, of course not. It's up to you to offer experiences that align with your passions and your personality. The point of this example is to show you that one deviation from the expected can often be the thing that turns someone from a nah to a yes, let's book it. So experiences can range and take shape in so many ways. As I mentioned before, activities, tours, workshops, dinners, tastings, pop-ups, exhibits, one-off events, they can be as small or as large as you have the capacity for. So here's a perfect example of a low barrier yet creative experience: creating shells and beach stone jewelry with an expert in naturalism. So depending on how this experience is structured, it has so much potential to open people's eyes up to new perspectives, bond with loved ones, practice mindfulness, and tap into their creativity. And that's what we want an experience to do. Here's another great hands-on experience that caught my eye. Workshop style experiences are one of my personal favorites, especially because as adults, we really don't get to go out and try new things. An activity like this helps channel creativity, and the guest comes away with a nice memento from their trip. As Sage Lodge mentions in their post, having activities like this is so important for days where the weather isn't great for exploring, and the last thing you want is a bored guest on a rainy day. So one of my all-time favorite properties that gets all three of the surprise and delight elements spot on is the Rancho Pillow Motel. Their Instagram bio refers to the property as a Wonderland Hotel in Round Top, Texas. And from the pictures, I feel like that's a spot-on marketing tag. This is a perfect example of how thoughtful, personality-packed touchpoints come together to create both moments and experiences. And it's all because the host doesn't suppress or inhibit her own creativity and vision for the property. And while this host is clearly a very talented, bold artist, I would make the argument that every host could dial up their personality a bit more throughout their experience. So I highly recommend visiting their website to see this property itself because the rooms and features are incredible. This place has all the unique appeal that we talked about earlier. It's so unique that it's been featured in endless travel magazines, and you really can't buy that type of publicity that they get from being such a thoughtful destination. Being in one of the most well-known antiquing destinations in the country, this property is really catering to its audience. Some of their big experiences include Feast in the Fields with their own pop-up market, but they also have smaller experiences like tea ceremonies, and they carefully crafted spaces for engaging guests like their poetry library in the main barn. This place is so fantastic, I can't even imagine thinking twice about staying anywhere else in the area. They would just pale in comparison. So consider this your permission slip to embrace your own unique personality and passions in order to surprise and delight your guests. As you explore these three different opportunities to surprise and delight, I think this tool will be incredibly helpful for you to evaluate your offerings. This matrix was established by Joseph Pine in his book, The Experience Economy, and we can use it now to evaluate how valuable an experience is to someone. So on the horizontal spectrum, we have guest participation. Passive participation is where the guest isn't involved, they are simply witnessing. On this end of the spectrum, we have entertainment and aesthetics. So for example, watching a musical act or looking at art. At the opposite end of the spectrum is active participation. This is where guests are interacting with experience. These are more your hands-on activities, workshops, and active excursions and the like. So then on the vertical spectrum, we have absorption and immersion. According to Pine, absorption occupies a person's attention, but immersion requires the participant to go into and include themselves in the experience. When creating a one-off experience, ideally, you want to hit on all four boxes and end up in the sweet spot in the center. You want something that's entertaining, aesthetically pleasing, educational, and offers guests a sense of escapism. That's when you know you've created an offering that is truly enriching. That being said, you can always create a really rewarding and fun journey for your guests by using this matrix to map out multiple moments and experiences that hit on each experience realm. For example, you might have one experience where you bring in a local chef to cook authentic, culturally inspired dinners and entertain your guests with stories. This experience, of course, would fall into the upper left quadrant. If you're inviting the guests to partake in the meal and teach them cooking techniques from the region, then you would be getting more towards the center. So for example, if the next night you offered something a bit more educational and immersive, this would help balance out your experience offerings. Say, for example, you invite a local dance teacher to host a dance party with music from your destination. She could teach your guests special dance moves from the local culture, and this one is already getting more towards the center of the chart because, of course, dancing can be entertaining. So aesthetics relies heavily on the environment doing the heavy lifting for you. So for example, we talked about hospitality and museums merging. An example of this might be, having a mini exhibit where you display sculptures of native animals from a local artist. So this is an experience where the guest is passively appreciating and not becoming actively involved. And the final quadrant. Escapist experiences can teach just as well as educational events or amuse just as well as entertainment, but they involve greater customer immersion and physical involvement. This is where you immerse someone into your destination. It almost has like a role play quality to it and requires a willingness to enter a new world and leave your old life behind. This is, of course, something Disney does incredibly well, but you don't need a castle in order to recreate this sort of experience. Something like an outdoor adventure, scavenger hunt would fall into this category. You could even make it more immersive by encouraging guests to take on certain roles inspired by local celebrities throughout history. So just to recap, you can really approach this two ways, making sure you're creating a variety of moments and experiences that hit on each quadrant, or simply ensuring that each experience falls close to the center, ensuring a well-rounded experience for your guests. So once you start dreaming up new desirable ways to engage your guests, it's time to package it up. So, chocolate-covered strawberries and champagne, typical romance package, right? Why not change it up and offer something that says romance in a new, fun, and exciting way? If you go through the trouble of creating some really great experiences, packages will help you create awareness of these offerings and get them booked. According to a new report from SiteMinder, 15% of American travelers now plan to book their trip as part of a package this year, and the ability to tack on an experience, such as a tour or activity, is the second most important factor after free breakfast. This is a package I found from a local lodge near me, and it's like a weekend vacation package all wrapped up and ready to go. The guest doesn't even have to spend a minute planning their own experiences. The whole thing is taken care of for them. Is it unique and original? I mean, it could probably use a bit more novelty, but at least they're offering something more comprehensive than the typical package. After all, you are the expert on the local destination. You know what's worth seeing and visiting. Your guest is looking to you for this sort of guidance. If they don't have to lift a finger to plan, that's huge, especially for busy parents and professionals. They will pay a premium for your packages. So I know I shared a lot of information with you today and hopefully a new perspective that you found helpful and inspiring. I truly believe the days of heads and beds are behind us and that these thoughtful approaches are exactly what hosts are going to need to focus on to continue to surprise and delight guests. If you're curious to learn more, head over to my website and visit the Resources and Insights tab for a behind-the-scenes look at my process for elevating the guest experience, as well as free resources and trainings to get you moving. I also have a few different course offerings that can support you on this journey as well. You will find those at pathway.thestoriedexperience.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be sticking around for questions, and now I'll pass the mic back to Nathan.
Awesome. Thanks, Samantha. And ResNexus can help you tell a story with a beautiful aesthetic and professionally designed website. ResNexus is one of the largest website builders in the B2B space with over 850 websites. ResNexus helps you with the content and professional design to ensure a great user experience. We make sure to balance pictures that tell a powerful story paired with great content writing that is SEO optimized. It's easy to just have a website page that is text only, but doesn't capture the attention of your guest or user. Our website content marketing team can help craft a narrative that excites your guests to book. And the content is completely customizable. You only pay for the content you need, like things to do pages or dining pages or even event pages, or even a map to popular nearby destinations. And of course, we make it easy for guests to book direct with a call to action. The most successful websites have plenty of enticing content. If you're struggling to find the time to make sure your website is robust and SEO optimized blogs, things to do pages, and local attractions, ResNexus is here to help. If you purchase ResNexus content marketing, We will even write articles specific to your area that are SEO optimized that can help you rank on Google. Plus, we'll provide you a Facebook post as well. Content pages start at $149 per page, but if you get 10 or more pages, the rate goes down to $99 per page. Head over to ResNexus and click Solutions and Content Marketing to find out more. Our team can provide you 5, 10, 20, or 30 pages for your website. And as we prepare to take questions, I just want to remind everyone to please take just a few moments to provide their feedback on today's webinar. There's a short survey once you exit, and your feedback really helps our guest speaker. All right. During our next webinar, we will present Save Time, how to quickly email market with ResNexus. It's hard to find time for all the little things property managers have to do to run a successful business. Some things inevitably fall to the wayside, but marketing your property shouldn't be one of those. ResNexus makes it easy by automating some of your most time-consuming tasks. During this training webinar, we will review the ResNexus powerful email marketing tool with many email templates already built for you. We will show you how you are just a couple clicks away from getting more direct bookings and increasing your return guest rate. Join us Wednesday, October 6th at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time for that webinar. If you like this webinar and want to see past webinars, you can find them on resnexus.com under Education and then Webinars. This will bring up all of our upcoming and past webinars, where we have well over 50 different webinars as a free resource to you. And you can watch them on demand, plus directly below the videos, you will find the timestamps. So if you miss something during the webinar, you can easily find it right away. And another free resource available to you is Suite Exchange, a guide by hospitality professionals for hospitality professionals. These curated articles are available for free online to all, whether you are a ResNexus customer or not. Hosted on resnexus.com, Suite Exchange covers topics like operations, marketing, employee management, and case studies of properties just like you. If you would like to learn more about Samantha Hardcastle, check out the article that we wrote during our interview earlier this year. If you're a ResNexus customer and have questions, feel free to reach out to our support team by clicking support. And you can either call your red carpet professional or call the general support line. Let's see if we have any questions for either myself or Samantha Hardcastle. And Samantha, before we get into questions, I just have to say I loved that hula hoop idea that you found. That was so cool to take something that would be so decorative and then be a part of the experience, the immersive experience for guests to like play with. I could totally see families traveling with kids or something like that, and having something for them to do in the room would be just so cool. Among the many ideas that you presented here, that one certainly stuck out.
Yeah, one of my favorites as well. So thank you so much. I could look for these types of examples all day long.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. I certainly encourage our viewers today to go back and check out that kind of case study that you did, the storiedexperience.com/insights on the Wilcox House. I'm sure they will learn a ton of insights on that. I hope we have a ton of great questions for Samantha Hardcastle, our guest presenter today. And again, if you are leaving the webinar, please provide your feedback in the survey that's provided. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We have a question. What if you have limited space? How big is your property? And are you talking like your common space?
Yeah, this is always a good question that comes up. And, you know, I think like all things, we have to make do with what we have. Okay, 2 cabins, 8. Oh, sounds pretty sizable to me. You know, I would absolutely focus if you, it sounds like if you say cabins, you might be on like do you have like an outdoor space that you can leverage? Let me see what else came in. No hallways, no entertainment centers, outdoor access to all. Yeah, so I would, if you are capable of transforming the outdoor spaces, I think that's probably going to be one of your biggest opportunities. And you know, of course, the rooms themselves, as we saw with the hula hoop, can be created in a way that's a bit more engaging. Oftentimes, we view a room as just a place to sleep, But, in certain cases where, that's all you have, why not reinvent it and view it as something more than just that?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think there's always little things that you can do right within. It depends on your season as well, right? So if you're in a snowy destination or a colder destination where people come to ski and snowboard or anything like that, I think embracing that, right? So doing fun activities like igloos, or if there's a hill near you for sledding, if you attract families and things like that, that can certainly help. But ways to try to make that whimsical.
Yeah, and of course, one of my suggestions is like you've got the touch points, you've got moments, and then you've got experiences. If one of them isn't speaking to you, like if one of them feels like really restrictive, then focus more of your energy on one of the others. So maybe some doing some programming and experiences is really where you're going to focus your efforts, because the lack of actual physical space and the capabilities to, say, decorate or create those physical touch points isn't as important as the actual experiences themselves. Oh, I love that. She said we have bicycle theme, bears on the lake, alpine room. Yeah, so it sounds like you're doing a good job of leaning into some of these things that we discussed. The question is, do the rooms constitute an experience? I think that's honestly up to you. Like, do you want your room to have to be a place where you host experiences? Like, are there experiences that you can host in your room? Oftentimes we in hospitality we think experiences, we think of interactions with guests and events and things like that. But an experience can be where the guest is just experiencing something by themselves. It's just outside of the norm, right? So, for example, a wellness property could absolutely find ways to integrate, self-reflection into the room, into an experience. So I really think it depends on what you view, like how you view your property. And again, going back to what is the goal of this space? What is the goal of this property? Like, what are we bringing to travelers? What are we bringing to guests? And, if it makes sense, absolutely, you can totally use your rooms as a space for experiences.
I don't see any others that are coming in. So I think we'll leave it there, but I appreciate everybody's time and attention today. Thank you, Samantha Hardcastle, for joining us on the 3 standout ways to surprise and delight your guests. It was a fantastic presentation. I know you worked really hard on it. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to either one of us. We'll be happy to help you. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Again, thanks for joining us for 3 standout ways to surprise and delight your guests.
Thank you.